So this is our last week. This is the last two techniques I'm going to be teaching via video, and this will bring us to the end of the semester. So we are covering weapon disarms, and today I'm going to go over gun disarms, handgun disarms. And I had mentioned, I showed you a couple things in the Zoom meeting about how to recognize when a semi-automatic gun is unloaded, and so somebody's going to have to pause and reload. So keep that stuff in mind too. But today we're going to look at what to do if a gun is actually pointed at you. So as with any weapon, your first option is always to run. That's the best option, particularly with a gun, because your chances, the further away you get, the better your chances are of not getting hit by something that's shooting at you. This is in case you cannot run, you're certain that this person, or fairly certain this person, is going to be shooting you, or the person is using the gun to force you to a secondary location. In both of those cases, if you can't run, you would want to perform a disarm, if at all possible. So we're going to talk about some principles first. The first principle is, because a gun is unidirectional, unlike a knife is multi-directional. So a gun, if that muzzle is pointing at you, you're going to get hit with a bullet. If it's not pointing at you, you're not going to get hit. And that's an important distinction. So in some ways that makes it a little bit easier. A gun, it can be more dangerous than a knife simply because it can project the harm from a distance, whereas a knife, a person has to be right upon you. But with a gun, because it's unidirectional, once you get that muzzle off of you, if you can keep it off of you, you're not going to get shot. So that's the first principle. Second principle is that in order to keep that muzzle off of you, you have to move offline while simultaneously deflecting the weapon. And I'm going to show you how that's done. The third principle is that once you control the weapon, you don't surrender control. So in other words, I don't want to just grab the guy's wrist. First of all, we grab the gun, not the person's wrist, because if I've got this in my wrist and somebody grabs me by the wrist, I can still move that around. My wrist is fairly flexible, and I may be able to get off a shot just by moving my wrist. So we want to actually grab the weapon. So I'm grabbing the weapon, and then I'm going to use leverage, not strength, especially because this guy could be a lot stronger than me. He could be a lot bigger than me. So I'm going to use leverage to disarm, and I'm not going to use strength. So those are some of the principles to keep in mind as we go through this. And again, training guns, we always want to use a training gun, never use a real gun in training. The only thing that I would say as an exception would be if you're practicing with a airsoft or a paintball gun, then have the proper protection. And that's actually a good way to see if you are doing a proper disarm, because if you're not, you're getting instant feedback. But generally speaking, training guns are plastic or rubber, and you want one that's colored, because if you have a black gun, it could easily be mistaken for a real one. Somebody could call the police on you. I've heard of situations like that happening. So your gun should be brightly colored, or should at least have the front part of the barrel here should be red to indicate that it's a training gun. So I'm going to put this in Bob's hands, and we're going to look at a disarm from the front. So first of all, with when I'm doing this disarm, I don't want to go to his inside. The reason is that he's got that other arm there, and he can use that arm to grab me. So I'm going to go to his outside. So the first thing I want to do is, I don't want that muzzle pointed at me, right? So what I'm going to do is, I've got my hands up. It's important to have your hands up. If you don't have your hands up, he's going to detect movement as soon as those hands come from here. So if a gun is put on you, hands go up. Not way up here, just right here. And then what I'm going to do is I might talk to him to distract him. Look, I'll give you whatever you want. You could say anything. But while you're talking, do the disarm. Look, I really don't have much, but I'll give you whatever I got. And then at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my body. And notice when I turn, this hand just automatically comes here without even extending it. It's just right there. So if I'm looking at you from here, I'm turning like this. Okay? So I'm here, and I turn. I grab the gun, and I push it away a little bit. Okay? So I'm here, grab. From there, I'm going to bring this hand underneath and grab also for more leverage. But I don't want to take that hand in front of the gun for obvious reasons. So I come under and I grab. The next step is I'm going to turn this gun. I'm not going to go up like this. I'm going to turn it in a circle, in a horizontal circle, toward the attacker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I don't get my body in front of that. I'm going to lead with my hands. I'm going to turn, but I'm going to use my body weight to help me turn. Okay? His finger's on the trigger, it pops right out. Boom. Okay? And then from there, I can complete that turn, disarm, come back with an elbow strike, and then take the gun and leave. Okay. So one more time. Hands up. I turn my body, and at the same time I grab that gun. I come underneath. I grab underneath. I turn toward him and disarm. Don't know if I mentioned this, but there's a possibility that if the gun discharges, the slide on the top will rack another cartridge into the chamber, and if it does that, it moves. If it moves and you've got your hand on it and you don't have a tight enough grip to keep it from moving, you could end up getting your hand cut. There's a lot of little things sticking out, little safeties and that sort of thing. You could end up getting your hand cut by that movement. Or if it fires and you grab it here, the barrel could be hot. You could get it burnt. And the only thing that's relevant about that is that you need to kind of know that ahead of time, so that if you do get cut or if you do get burnt, you don't just let go. You just hang on, even if it's painful. Okay? All right, one more time. And these disarms are the same whether the person's holding the gun with one hand or holding them with both hands. It's going to be the same disarm. So I'm here. I go to his outside. I've got my hands up. I grab the gun. I come underneath and grab it with that hand. I lead with my hands, and I turn in tightly. Now notice who is pointed at now. If it goes off, he's the one that's going to get shot. I wrench it away, come in with an elbow strike. I make sure this isn't coming back on me. I don't want to turn it like this. I keep it here. I back away if I need to. I kick, and then I exit. Okay, so that is a gun disarm from the front.